Good morning to everybody. I'm Ian Campbell. My partner Mark L. with Alpha Capital. We are the financial advisors for your 401k plan. And today we're going to be going over the online enrollment process and talking about the benefits of saving for retirement and the 401k plan that's been presented for you today. A couple attachments have been sent off to the owners of the company, and those emails will be sent to you with the information that we'll be reviewing today, along with some other documentation. So if there's any questions, feel free to reach out to us as well. We are your advisors and can be reached out to one-on-one at your leisure at any time. Our contact information will be in the email, but also on some of these documents, so we'll definitely reference that so you have our contact information as well. The beginning of this document that I'll be looking at right now is going to be the online enrollment packet. If you forget about anything today or what you've watched so far, feel free to reference this guide back. This is probably the most important one out of all of them. Starting on the second page is the first step that folks will go to. It is going to the retirement plan consultants or the 401k provider's website and selecting online enrollment and completing that. Now, the website is listed here. Also be mindful that there is what's called a plan password, and it's MJC Auto. It's in all capital letters. And that's going to be important when you're completing that first step. Starting on page 8 of this online enrollment packet are screenshots to walk you through that onboarding process of that enrollment. And you'll go to that website, which you see here. You'll see a small gray box in the middle of that web page. In that top left corner, you'll click online enrollment. That'll flip that box for you, and then you'll put in your plan password there. And again, you saw it on that previous screen. And then you'll then follow those next prompts to complete the next steps with entering in your personal information, creating a username, and so on. Make sure you are referencing this if you have any questions throughout that onboarding process. And on one of these items, I did want to go and bring this to your attention. It's come up in the past is for folks that are going about halfway through this process, there is a section where it says select investments, and you're going to go and choose the source of money. Make sure you are selecting on this page where it says all sources of money and then hitting next. Again, following these guided steps is going to help transition to a smooth process, but it's fairly user-friendly. But if there's any questions that either of you have, you're more than happy to go and reach out to us. Going back up to the top of this page with the online enrollment process, you're going to go and complete that workflow. There is going to be a series of questions that each of you will be facing as you're completing that information. So we find it often easier to go through the actual paper version of the enrollment to go and give you a heads up of what type of information you'll be completing through those steps. This form will actually serve as a waiver for those who do not wish to participate in the plan as well. So this enrollment application is 2 pages. For those who wish not to participate in the plan, they will complete this top section and then choose this first option. I elect not to contribute into the retirement plan at this time. If that is something that you are going to be doing and electing, make sure you are returning those documents to Mike, and he'll then keep that for the records there. For those who do want to participate, you'll be filling out personal information as well. What's also important for everybody is to have and complete your date of hire. So get with the owners and HR around your date of hire and confirm that, because that is a piece of information that you will need as you're completing the online enrollment process. For those who do want to participate in the retirement plan, which we hope is everybody, you have a couple options with the types of contributions that you have available. And those contribution types are what's called a pre-tax or traditional contribution or an after-tax Roth contribution. And the differences between the two are essentially when the money is taxed. For an after-tax contribution or Roth, you're going to pay taxes today. And then when you withdraw the money, you're not subject to paying any taxes because you've already paid those. The opposite happens with the traditional or pre-tax, which is probably the most familiar for folks. You're going to put in money today, and then you're going to pay taxes as you withdraw it. And really the differences between the two is what you foresee your tax rate to be right now versus what it would be in the future in retirement. Now, we're not sure of what taxes are going to be in 15, 20, or 30, or even 40 years from now. So it is somewhat of a best guess scenario of what you foresee your taxes to be now versus what they could potentially be in the future. As a general rule of thumb, if you're looking for a deduction in your income or reducing your taxable income, then that pre-tax or traditional option is often the best case. If you are younger in your years, but also earlier in your working career and maybe in a lower income standpoint, then Roth is often the best play on that as well too, with the hedge that you're going to be making more money in the future, essentially in a higher tax bracket later in life. So then at that time, you would switch to possibly a pre-tax option in that scenario. So I'm going to pause there. Does anybody have any questions on the traditional contributions or the after-tax contributions? Okay. So with that being said, whatever you decide today on the pre-tax, the how much, the investments, whether you want to participate or not, you can adjust that at any time in the future. Nothing is set in stone. The how much question is also equally important. The national average for your peers, my peers, all industries, all age groups are saving 8% of their income. So use that as kind of a watermark for each of you to try to get to or be at or start at. Again, 8%. A lot of studies have shown is that the 10% number is really the magic number. So if you were to Google or pull up anything or read articles and say, how much should I be saving for my retirement? A lot of research will show that 10% is really that number, and even higher, almost to the tune of about 15%. So use that 10% number as a goal. Would really encourage everybody to participate at least 10%. But we understand that 8% or 10% may not be in the cards for you at this time, but contributing something lower is definitely worth it. Doing something is better than nothing. The most important thing for folks that they could do, you can ask your peers around you that are possibly older, is they wish they could go back in time and start saving earlier in life. So if you're younger, start saving as early as you possibly can, because compounding interest, time value of money, is very, very impactful to your overall retirement savings. So if you are contemplating maybe starting out at a lower percentage, say 5% or 6% or something like that, is possibly consider updating your contribution rate or that percentage by 1% each year. So say start out at 5, a year rolls off, move that from 5 to 6, and then 7, and then 8 in years following. That 1% increase is hardly ever felt on your net take-home pay, and it's an easy way to get up to that national average or even up to that 10% level as well. With that being said, whatever you decide for that contribution rate, you can adjust it along with that Roth or pre-tax as well. You are eligible to put in a flat dollar amount as well. We don't really recommend it, and the reason being is in the event that you are saving for retirement, and let's just say you're going to put $100 into your paycheck and you're an hourly employee. If you are working, say, part-time or out sick, that $100 is going to come out of your paycheck, whether it's $500 or $1,000. So to avoid surprises, we really encourage everybody to just do a percentage. It's a little bit more palatable in most cases, and it's easier to go and justify as you're working, lighter or a heavier schedule in most cases. With that being said, I wanted to pause there to see if there was any questions that either of you have before we roll off and go to the investment selection and investment options available. Okay, so starting on the second page of the PDF enrollment, you'll also see this as you're going through the online enrollment as well, is there's about 30 or so investment choices available to you to pick and choose from. All of these investment choices are all institutional grade mutual funds. What that means to you as investors is that they are the lowest investment cost available to investors. So you've got great low cost investment choices. On top of that, these investment choices are all top quartile performers in their respective asset classes as well. So you've got great performing funds and low cost. Part of Mark and I's role and responsibility as advisors on this plan is to make sure this investment menu is dynamite today, but also dynamite into the future. And what I mean by that is we are reviewing these investment menu every single quarter and scrutinizing it with heavy scrutinizing. And we also review this with a criteria. And if the fund does not meet a certain criteria at a given quarter, 4 consecutive quarters, we will then pull out that fund and replace it with a like-kind fund. So the funds are constantly getting improved over time. You've got great choices available to you, and I assure you that into the future, you will also remain and have great choices available. Those funds do get swapped out automatically. Disclosures will get sent out to participants, giving them a heads up. If you've got money in that one fund, it'll just get pulled out and put into that new fund automatically overnight. And there's no heavy lifting any of you will have to do. With that being said, we understand that when we're talking to you about great investment choices and low cost, that doesn't help you with that selection. So part of our ongoing advice and education to you as participants is what's called a model asset allocation guide. And we send this out every single quarter. And this is also a document that's included in that email that you'll receive with the other instructions. This information, again, is all of the investment choices available to you. This top larger rectangle that I've got zoomed in on my screen is actually more of a hands-on approach. And all the investment choices are listed here on that that left-hand column. The second column is going to be that asset class that they represent. Ticker symbol is in the third. And then on the top here, we've got 5 diversified models that Mark and I have put together to give you our recommendation of what we would recommend you invest in based off of that risk tolerance. So 5 different asset allocations as well as risk tolerances based off of either your temperament, age, time frame left in retirement, and so on. For an education purposes, the right-hand column, that aggressive column, is going to be more appropriate for folks that are in their 20s and 30s, even into their mid-30s. And then folks that are in their 30s and even into their 40s, that 65-35 mix is most appropriate. And then as you're nearing your 50s and even into your 60s, we tend to see folks that will go into that more moderate column or that 50-50 blend. And then folks that are in or nearing retirement will do a 65-35 or even a 80-20 through retirement. So this option is a little bit more hands-on. The ask of the individual or the employee is to, if you're going to follow this guide, is as we come out with the quarterly updates, some of these percentages may be change. We may go from 2% up to 4%, or change it from one fund to the other. And we would want you to make that change as well on your investment menu. You'd go online to the website, make a couple changes, type in the percentages again, and hit save. It would take you a couple minutes to do that. So that's the ask. It's a little bit more hands-on, but we've got a guide and a resource for you to go and follow. The other option is that left-hand column on this document, which is a target date series. Target date funds are very popular. About 7 out of 10 people will actually select this investment option in their retirement plan. And the reason being is it's truly autopilot. You set it and forget it. And the way these work is you would identify what year it would be when you reach age 65. And that's going to put you into one of these target date ranges here in that second column. And that would be associated with the most appropriate fund based off of your date of birth and the time frame left until retirement. And these funds work in very similar fashion to those columns above, is they start out aggressive for those younger employees, and then they de-risk every single 5 years, ultimately becoming less aggressive, and then about a 50-50 portfolio at retirement. The ones that I've highlighted in blue are going to be more aggressive in nature. They're going to be 80 to 90% in equities or stocks. The next 4 are going to be closer to that 60-40, 70-30 mix, or 60% in equities or 70% in equities and stocks. The next 3, or the lower the year or closer to the present year, is going to be more of that 50-50 portfolio, or more in that moderate aggressive camp for those folks that are in their 60s. So depending on your preference, you've got one that's a little bit more hands-on, following the guide and the quarterly updates. One's a little bit more hands-off. The third is totally up to you. You have the keys to the car. You have full discretion of picking whatever investment choices you would like. We just wanted to help provide a roadmap and some recommended path of what we feel is most appropriate for you based off of that risk tolerance. What's also important is whatever you decide today on these investments can be changed literally every single day. There is no investment cost or no trading cost of going in and out of any of these mutual funds as well. One thing to mention on the bottom of this document is both Mark and I's contact information. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're available to you, and you can reach out to us at any time. Going back to the online enrollment packet, I did want to reference, before we hop to the beneficiary document, was there any questions that either of you have on the investments at all? Okay, So hopping to the beneficiary designation form, this information is important. If you are completing the online enrollment, you will be able to fill this out electronically, so you don't have to complete the paper form. There's nothing that you'll need to print out if you don't have to. Beneficiaries are very important. In the event that you pass away, the monies that you've accumulated in this account will go to whom you wish. In a scenario, husband and wife and 2 children, you would name your spouse as primary beneficiary at 100%. And then the 2 other beneficiaries, those 2 children, would be listed as contingent beneficiaries at 50% apiece. You can adjust this at any time as life changes, people come and go in your lives. Please make sure you are logging in online and keeping that up to date. Set a reminder in your phone or do something to just make sure that you are updating that information across all accounts. What this applies on this account also applies on other accounts that have beneficiaries as well. So make sure that is either unanimously the same across all boards, but you're also keeping that up to date. There is one quick mention. This is an IRS rule. On the bottom of this form, there's what's called a spousal consent required. This would only apply in the event that you did not name your spouse as primary beneficiary. So what I mean by that is if you are skipping your spouse as being first in line or a 100% primary beneficiary, if they are not listed as that, your spouse has to acknowledge that, and a witness notary also has to be present and sign and acknowledge that as well. So don't want to create any arguments at the dinner table, but that is an IRS rule and something to be mindful of. If that does apply to your circumstances, then you will need to actually complete that paper form because there's not a way to do a digital signature for a notary. And then the last and final item that I want to touch on is what's called the plan account rollover. And the plan account rollover is important for those who may have an IRA or 401k account or another retirement account that's a legacy from another company or another firm or even just another savings account. If that does apply for you, you are eligible to roll over or consolidate those assets into this plan at any time. There's no time frame on doing that. If you're eligible to participate, you can roll in those assets. There's a team at Retirement Plan Consultants or the provider that can help and assist with that rollover. This is the actual receiving side of it. In some cases, the firm that you're leaving, they will have a form that's similar to this as well that they would require you to sign and have that check writing instructions as well. So if that does apply, reach out to us. We can get you in touch with Retirement Plan Consultants and they can help assist and do all the heavy lifting of transferring those assets from that one company over to this one. But it also works on the outbound. If you're no longer working for the company and you've accumulated money or rolled money into the plan, you can actually roll out money at your leisure as well. It can transfer out to another IRA or to another company's 401k as well. So this form would actually work on the inbound, but also on the outbound if you're no longer working for the firm. That is the last and final thing I wanted to cover. Again, just a quick mention. If there's any questions that either of you have, our contact information is included in the email, but also on the bottom of this asset allocation guide. And we're here to help and assist you with any questions that you have ongoing. Keep an eye out for quarterly communications that we'll have coming out with a newsletter, as well as this information that you're seeing now today.